Hi guys, welcome to Jason's Trucking Info, and in this video we're going to go over trip planning, the old school way versus what we'll call the new generation. For those of you that are newer that maybe didn't get taught as much stuff versus those of you that learned to drive 20-30 years ago or something and learned a lot of the old school ways of doing stuff with trip planning and finding your way around. So we're going to go over the differences between the two and which ones are better and why using all of it is good, is to use everything at your fingertips to trip plan and to get places and to use everything you have access to. So I have an old Motor Carriers Road Atlas. I looked all over in this, and which is weird because most Motor Carriers Atlases I've ever had say the year on the cover and in places, but this one, the only place I was able to find, I found the copyright inside this. Where did I find it? Copyright of 2014. It was somewhere right here. It's the only thing I can find as a date as to how old this is, because I couldn't remember how long ago I bought this. I need to buy a new one. This is a 2014 Motor Carriers Atlas. So this thing is 10 years old. This is a 10-year-old Motor Carriers Atlas. Now, I can still use it for stuff. A lot of the stuff in it will still be accurate, but there might be some things in it that are not updated because they're changing things around the country all the time. They're making new exits. They're making widening highways, making some highways that used to not be truck appropriate might be appropriate now. And there's all kinds of things like that going on all over the place. And being that Motor Carriers Road Atlas is 10 years old, it might not show me everything, but it still might be handy to look up some stuff because most of the stuff still will be accurate. Okay, the old school truck driver had to look up everything on a map. He had to figure out where the city was he was going to, a small town city. He had to figure out whether that was near a big city or not, and all that stuff. He had to figure out what highways were best to get from wherever he is to wherever he's going. Okay, or she. Okay, let's not get sensitive here. All right, so the old school truck driver had exit guides. The old school truck driver didn't have access to truckers' GPSs, didn't have a smartphone, cell phones weren't even around. You had a CB to be able to talk to other truckers to see if they could tell you other ways to get places. Majority of guys aren't even on their CB, even if they have one. A lot of truckers don't even have a CB anymore and don't know how to get themselves, don't even know how to talk on a CB or anything. So nowadays the new generation has truckers GPSs or truckers apps on their smartphone. Your smartphone has so many features on it and your trucker's GPS to be able to help you do all kinds of stuff, to take pictures of notices that you are doing. You can take pictures of maps of places that you need to go when you're at facilities. You can take pictures of your information if you don't want to write it down, or take pictures of all kinds of stuff. When stuff happens, you can take pictures of it and send it through email or text messages or what other other apps you might have available depending on what company you're working for. You have the trucker's GPS to be able to find cat scales easier, to find truck stops easier, provided that you're updating that GPS on at least every couple of weeks. You should be good on most stuff. Your trucker's GPS is not going to be able to find everything. There will be addresses that may not come up. You might be stuck looking stuff up through Google Maps and looking up an address on that and then trying to find it. Then you might be able to find it on the trucker's GPS. Maybe. There is a school of thought of using all of this stuff by looking stuff up the old school way, where you had to look stuff up in a map and look up all the roads on. You pull up once you know where you got to pick up from in the country and where you're going. You can figure out what highways are in between those and what highways you're going to have to take. You also have to pay attention to the weather. You got to know what states are prone to high winds, what states are prone to different things. And as you travel the country, you're going to learn what parts of the country have different things you got to deal with. Some parts of the country have a lot of slower speed limits. Other parts of the country have a lot higher speed limits. Some of them have more mountains. Some of them have more snow, wind. Some of them just aren't really prone to having a lot of truck-friendly roads. Some of them are tight. You get to some parts of the country, you got all the room in the world. It's truck-friendly, and there just might not be a lot of truck places to go to. Like down in Florida, there's not, in my experience, there wasn't a whole lot of places to go park a truck at. They're like very few places you can go, especially park a truck for free at. There's almost none. Most of them you have paid parking. There's a pilot that's on the edge outside of Miami that has $25 a night paid parking. And when I worked for CRST, they would reimburse you for that if you sent in a receipt. And a lot of your companies will probably do that for you if you're stuck in places where you can't find free parking. But for the most part, you should always be able to find somewhere to park as long as you think out the box. You do not have to park at a truck stop. You don't have to go to a rest area. You can go find an industrial area where trucks go and park on the streets where trucks usually wait to get in and out of shippers and receivers anyway. You can go to those type of places. You can go to small towns and park at like a co-op or something like that where you're not in the way and no one's going to bother you, as long as you're not in the way and being a problem. So thinking outside the box. Some Walmarts have truck parking, some don't. I mean, you just gotta be thinking out the box, and you should be able to find a place to park your truck. Okay, so truck parking should not be that much of a problem, but try to make sure wherever you park your truck that you're not in people's way, and that you do the best you can to park that truck out of everybody's way so that trucks can get in and out around you without having too much of a risk of hitting you or whatever. So the new generation truck driver is not going to remember things as much. They're not going to know as many exit numbers. They're not going to remember as many truck stops. They're not going to remember where things are at. Their memory is going to be foggy as to what they did. And the old school truck driver had to memorize stuff a lot more. They wrote things down. They looked stuff up. They had to call and confirm directions. They had to write things down. They write down all your information in a little book or some sort of a notepad Some people use one this size, some people use maybe something bigger, whatever, But first you write down all your pickup information, all the numbers you're going to have, pickup numbers, load numbers, appointment numbers, whatever, and address and phone numbers and things like that for your shippers and receivers. And I usually put my shippers on one side and the receivers on the other in my book, and I have all my information in this. If I was doing stuff the old school way, I would also have on the next page past this, or right here in the blank spot if I had room, I would be looking up on the map where I'm going to from where I'm coming from, each highway and how many miles I'd be on that, and I would write down which highways I had to turn onto in which direction and in what city I'm going to be catching that in, and possibly writing down that I'm going to be turning towards a certain city. So on your Qualcomm directions, your preferred routing trip messages that you usually get, sometimes they won't tell you that. They'll give you the back highway number that is running with that major interstate. So it might be telling you that you're taking Highway 52 when you might also be on Highway 90 and US 10, and you might be on multiple highways at once that are sharing the same length of highway for a certain distance. And that stuff isn't always the easiest to see, even on a trucker's map, because sometimes there's a lot of stuff on that map. So you can look at that stuff and see the major highways that you're taking and stuff like that, and figure out the best ways to go. Like I said, you want to pay attention to weather. I wish I'd have been paying attention to weather the other day when I was going through St. Louis. I got stuck outside of St. Louis for 6 hours sitting on the side of the road, 45 miles outside of St. Louis. Couldn't even get to St. Louis to go through it because I had to sit there on the side of the road because there were so many accidents. The roads were so bad through there that I had to sit there for 6 hours, and it was crazy. And so I could have maybe been able to route myself around all that stuff had I had known. So you're not always going to know and to do that stuff. So other things you're going to want to know is you got to look up low clearances. You got to look up in that book, in that Truckers Motor Carriers Atlas, there are different sections. There's low clearances, okay, listed in each state. You can look that up to see if your highway that you're planning on taking is listed, and it'll usually tell you, a lot of times in there it tells you where that low clearance is, and that way you should probably take a different way, depending. Sometimes you got to take that way, and then you got to get off and go a different direction to go around a low clearance, such as a low bridge or whatever you're avoiding. Some places around the country have low hanging wires across the road, especially if you wind up getting yourself in a jam and you wind up on some side roads that aren't meant for trucks and are residential streets, or streets only meant for cars. They are meant for nothing taller than maybe a rental truck or something, and they might have some low-hanging wires that you will catch if you go down there in a semi-truck. So you got to be really careful about things like that. And if you're driving at night, good luck. You may not even be able to see that in the dark. So what are some things I didn't mention here? The old school truck driver has to look every single stupid thing up. The old school truck driver didn't have access to all these fancy apps. They didn't have a phone to be able to look stuff up. They didn't have internet. They didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have truckers' GPSs. They had maps and exit guides, and if they're lucky, their company provided them with a toll-free number to call customers to confirm customer directions, and they got phone numbers through messages from their company. If you go back far enough, they didn't even have all this electronic crap. You had old school trucks, and everything was just done old school. I'm talking old school stuff. Nowadays, the average truck driver, even old school truck drivers, have converted over to new generation ways. They got a trucker's GPS in their phone, and they just put the information in, and away they go, and they don't have to pay attention to hardly anything. They need a cat skill, they just put it in their GPS, and they look up the closest one. There they go. Their trucker's GPS take them right there. They need truck parking, and they could put parking in, and they can look up all the nearest truck parking places around them and figure out where to go. It'll tell them if there's a Love's, a Pilot, a TA, a rest area, Walmart Supercenter, and whatever for you to go try to park at. So, because the old school truck driver has to write a lot of stuff down, they have to memorize exit numbers a lot more. They memorize a lot more truck stops. They memorize a lot more different ways of getting around the country, because they have to think about it more. They have to pay attention a lot more. They're not just relying on their GPS to get them there. It's a trucker's GPS, it'll get me there. And while your trucker's GPS will get you there in most cases, mine has been very reliable. Even my old one used to be very reliable. Not so much anymore. I got it working for a little while, and then I kind of had to retire it. I'm now only running with just the one trucker's GPS, and if I have to, I'll back up with Google Maps, or I need to familiarize myself with other GPS programs such as Hammer, Trucker Pathways, and if you guys know of any others, please list them in the comments below so I can try to get familiar with those and do a video on all those. With all GPS units or apps, you want to look at the map, at the big picture, to see what that path looks like, what that route looks like that it is highlighted. Especially, I used to tell this to my wife all the time. She used to go get use Google Maps to go pick things up for Facebook, off of Facebook Marketplace and some of those other shopping things to get stuff. When we were getting ready to have a baby, she would go get some stuff off of Facebook Marketplace and other such things, and she would use Google Maps, and I would tell her, don't just follow it blindly. You gotta shrink down the map and look at it to see, is it a straight path, or is it doing what some GPSs like to do, where you're right here and you're going right here, but for some reason it wants to route you all the way around before it gets you there, when there is a straight path across you could have probably gone. And next time you program in for an address right next to that place you went to before, Google Maps will take you straight there instead of taking you around Jack Robinson's barn to get there. So you really want to pay attention to not just the turn list, and you want to not just blindly follow any GPS program or unit. You want to shrink down the map, minimize it, zoom out, zoom in, whatever, and get as much information about how direct of a path is that taking you. Okay, there is more than one way to go places, and your GPS is going to try to take you depending on how you have it programmed. Depending on how you've got the settings set and the parameters set in your trucker's GPS, in your Google's Map app, your trucker's pathway map, depending on what you've gone in and programmed it for, will depend on whether or not it's going to send you down different ways. If you don't have it set up right, you got to go and make sure that it is set up for your truck. Is it set for an 18-wheeler? Is it set for a truck that's 70 foot long, 13 foot 6, 8 to 10 feet wide, and all that jazz? Is it set up with those parameters? And your weight up to 80,000 gross? Is your programs set up with all those parameters in place? If not, you might find yourself in a jam by using that app. Make sure before you just blindly follow that you have put all those parameters in. Even your trucker's GPS right out of the box might not be fully set up just to blindly use. You got to go in there and do setup. Go into settings, see what it's set for, see all kinds of stuff, and then you can customize it. You can make your truck icon look like different things depending on, if you have a Rand McNally GPS, you can set the icon different. I don't know, I haven't never used a Garmin really, or some of the others, so I don't know what customization options you might have on those. But you want to make sure that the most important information is the parameters of your truck is in there, and then make sure that you have updated your whatever you're using, whether it's a GPS unit or a map. Make sure it's updated. With Google Maps, it's kind of self-updating. You don't have to really update that self-updating. Trucker Pathways, I don't know if you gotta every so often, I know you gotta update apps on your phone, but you just want to make sure all those settings are right, and write down all the information for wherever you're going. Everything you want to write down, every single thing, and then eventually, when you've been writing down everything like that, you'll know how to get places. There'll be times you'll get loads over your Qualcomm or whatever, and you'll see where you're going and where you're at, where you're to pick up at, and where you're going, and you're going to know how to get there, and you won't even need your GPS. You'll know exactly how to get there, what roads you do got to get there with, and you won't even have to think about it, because you'll just know. You won't even feel the need to program it in your GPS. You'll just leave your GPS on standby until you get there, and you might use it on your next trip after that. But at some point, if you're using a map to look stuff up, at some point, if you're writing all this stuff down so that you know where you should be turning at, and you practice doing the old school way, writing all that stuff down, you will memorize a lot of things. You'll be one of those guys that when someone says, I don't know how to get you from here to here, you just got to take this highway and this way and turn off here, and you'll have to go around this thing, and then watch out for this because of blah blah blah, and you'll just be able to spout off real quick how to get someplace. And the old school trucker can do that. The new generation driver can't do so much of that. They memorize very little, depending on who you are. Some people's memories are better than others. But if there's anything I have forgot to mention in this video, please leave any comments or questions or whatever in the comments below to help others. Leaving your comments and questions helps others, because they can go back through there and read those and get information. Please hit the bell and hit all so you're notified of all my upcoming videos and any other videos I do. And please leave the like. And thank you for stopping by and watching my video here. And please add to anything I've said, and anything I forgot to mention, please get in the comments and put it in there so it adds to this video. And then when I go to read the comments, I'll know, yeah, I forgot that. I need to do this video again at some point and mention that. So thank you very much for stopping by and watching, guys. Catch you next video. Make sure that you're using everything at your disposal. Everything. Your phone, your trucker's GPS, your laptop, your motor carrier's road atlas, exit guides, and calling your customers to confirm directions to your shippers and receivers. And make sure that you're familiarizing yourself and memorizing the highways and exits of all the places you're going around the country to make it easier for yourself. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.